Great pleasure to introduce, therefore, our fireside chat, the power of AI. As developments in AI speed up, how will people and jobs be impacted? To take us through that, great pleasure to introduce Saul Klein, who's the co-founder of Academy, non-executive director at the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology in April 2023. Saul is also co-founder and managing partner of Phoenix Corp, home to Local Globe, Latitude Solar and Basecamp Venture Capital Funds. He's going to be talking with Dorothy Chou, who's the head of public affairs at Google DeepMind, which is just come together, actually bringing a number of parts of the Google empire together to provide cutting-edge AI capabilities with a company of scientists, engineers, and researchers. They're going to be telling us a little bit about what happens next. Thanks very much.
Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Phoenix Court. So you're going to hear in the next 15 minutes from one of our neighbors. And I know Lucy talked about one of her neighbors being here. One of our neighbors here at Phoenix Court is DeepMind. We're very fortunate to be in a neighborhood where the world's best AI company lives. I say the world's best AI company because very recently Google or Alphabet decided that the work that DeepMind does is so important that they created their global center of expertise around all things AI in our neighborhood.
Yes.
And combined Google's AI with DeepMind. And the CEO and founder of DeepMind, Demis, now runs both. Now, one of the reasons I think this is incredibly significant, having spent some time in the 90s working in Redmond at Microsoft, which is another AI company. The idea that something that was as important from a technology standpoint was going to be run outside of the global HQ was basically impossible, would never happen. So I think what I'd love to just explore a little bit with you, Dorothy, maybe tell us a little bit about your role, but also what you see as the significance of one of the 5 most important companies in the world taking what currently is the most important technology in the world and saying, London,
yep.
King's Cross, or as I would call it, the new square mile, is the place to think about this. What is it that makes this place the best place? Because I know you've spent some of your career in Silicon Valley to be thinking about the issues that we're talking about today.
Well, thanks, Saul, for having me. For those who aren't familiar, DeepMind is a company that's building safe AI systems, advanced AI systems, to solve some of the world's most pressing challenges, like health, climate change, and beyond. And we're actually located just down the road, as you were mentioning. We were founded in 2010, acquired by Alphabet in 2014. And as Saul just mentioned, we have now combined the teams with the center of AI for Alphabet being in London, which is pretty amazing. And for me, like Saul was saying, I spent nearly a decade in Silicon Valley at a number of different technology companies. And the biggest change that I've noticed is the ability to move outside the sector and better understand how the technology is impacting people on the ground. When you're in London, you have different cultural institutions, a predisposition towards the humanities that I think is quite different and offering that natural multidisciplinary approach to a lot of the problems that are in technology. And it becomes really impossible to separate the work that you're doing in tech from how it affects people. And so we've partnered with Central St. Martin's, also in our neighborhood, another neighbor, to work with students actually and help them think through how they want to see AI come into the world. And when we gave them an open brief about, well, what are the ways that you think technology should be used, 8 out of the 10 projects in the first year that we did this pilot turned out to be about climate and sustainability. So I thought it was really interesting to see what the next generation wants to see technology doing and enabling them to have a voice and a say in how they want these technologies to be built and developed and deployed for their own benefit.
So I think this focus on people-centered technology or human-centered technology, or Lucy talked about purpose and values.
Yes.
I know it's sort of core to the DNA of DeepMind.
Yes.
But Silicon Valley can sometimes have the reputation of move fast and break things.
Yes.
Kill or get killed. How do you think about reconciling the mentality that you just described, which, as you said, this environment from a policy, from a humanities perspective is sort of supportive and nurturing towards, with the power of the technology? I mean, what do you see as the opportunities that this technology has that really benefits society at large, as opposed to making some investors or founders wealthy?
I mean, it starts with public engagement, and I think that's something that tech companies have traditionally really struggled with and struggled to do well. And so I think there needs to be a lot of thinking through how do you partner with civil society institutions. We've partnered, for example, with the Royal Society of Arts, with education policy experts, with teachers, gathering them together to understand how lifelong learning needs to integrate AI and also encourage AI literacy. We've also worked with in the US, the American Association of People with Disabilities, bringing these historically excluded groups into the conversation on how AI should be developed and deployed. I think it's really hard to build these new types of multi-stakeholder forums, institutions, especially at a time when a lot of the institutions we've traditionally relied on for these types of public engagement conversations, like the media or trades unions, it's unclear where they sit, but I actually think what we need to be doing is putting them at the forefront, putting these workers and their well-being at the forefront to understand how AI is going to be impacting their day-to-day work, encouraging them to run through some pilot scenario exercises around demystifying the technology so that we can figure out how they think it's going to integrate into their lives. And then tech companies can work with them together on that. Like I said, it's something we've really struggled with. Having worked at places like Uber, where technology is extremely disruptive, I've had a front row seat in that conversation. And so how do you figure out with government what policies are the ones that will encourage equitable benefit, for example? How do you work with these groups to make sure that they are the ones advocating for what they need versus technology companies assuming they know? That's something that we're really, really dedicated to at DeepMind.
So, I mean, the space that we're in actually is our landlord's Camden Council. This space, and I think someone's put up at the back there, the reminder of it, was a GMB space. This was the space for many of Camden's trade unions. And this is an area where, trade unions and trade union representation has always been sort of, Somerstown, it's very much part of our neighborhood.
Sure. In
the same way that DeepMind now is. So, I mean, I think there are lots of interesting opportunities if one is open to engaging. How do you think workers should be thinking about AI, and how do you think employers should be thinking about AI?
Funny enough, I want to dispel the notion that workers can't integrate with AI. I think chatbots are really only one dimension of what AI looks like when it's integrated. It's the popular one. It's the way it's manifesting now. But that doesn't mean that AI can't be assistive in some workflows. One of the companies I've been lucky enough to be an angel investor in is called Open Art. And what they do is enable artists and creatives to basically put all of their different designs into a custom algorithm. And so if you're a fashion designer, for example, you put all your designs into the algorithm, and it spits out for you if you say, this season, I want broad shoulders, I want this color. It'll spit out all the variations for you based on your previous designs, and then you can go through and actually change them and customize them however you want, and you can find it assistive to your whole creative process. And I think that's how we want to see AI integrated. That's a more passive integration. But I also think chatbots can, in some cases, be useful. Like my mother actually is the power user in my family, and she's not a native speaker of English, so she actually finds it extremely useful just to write her emails, the first drafts, and she tells me that it wasn't for ChatGPT, her emails would be much more blunt, is the way she puts it. So I do think that there's a number of different skills, and what she's gotten really good at is prompt engineering, much better than me. And I work in the industry. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can see that happen, but literacy is really the key. And so partnering with different institutions on figuring out how to bring that literacy into the work environment is going to be really key to unlocking all these benefits.
Great. So just one final question. AI safety is a big topic.
Yes.
And you guys have talked about this. The UK government has talked about this. Just from a policy perspective, safety is an example. Obviously, sort of fair, transparent AI, which is going to work across all sectors of the economy, is important as well. When you think about regulation and governance, and again, going back to that first question of being in this neighborhood versus being in the Bay Area or versus being in Brussels, what are the opportunities that you see for constructive AI regulation in this geography as opposed to others?
Well, I think we're so lucky to be in the UK where the approach has been extremely thoughtful around needing to take in the context in which AI is used to be able to regulate it well. And thinking through the approaches to more powerful technologies as well. What are the ways that we need to ensure the technology is tested, well evaluated for the way it was intended to be used? Is it effective? What are the questions around bias? And so I think what we have the opportunity to do here is build the infrastructure that we want to see in order to get to the future benefits that government believes we can unlock. I think what we see in a lot of other jurisdictions is a lot of nostalgia in politics, a lot of how do we go backwards to a different time, maybe that was better. But I'm excited to see, I think in the UK, what they're trying to put together is what is the future vision of society that we want to see? And how do we partner with companies and civil society and academia to build towards that future? And I think there's a really great opportunity for the UK to lead, especially when it comes to conversations around global governance. That's what we see the summit coming together, as well as a lot of the responses to the existing UK white paper, which we're hugely supportive of.
So just one final or couple of key thoughts or takeaways for the audience. A lot of people in the audience are, responsible for hiring at organizations, for building a sort of a skilled workforce. You've talked about literacy. What are 2 or 3 things you think people should go away and think about doing this afternoon, when it comes to, taking full opportunity of the fact that AI is, potentially an incredibly positive force across society and the economy. We're in an environment where, it's values driven, where we have policymakers, sounds like hearing from Lucy today, on both sides of the aisle who are aligned on a kind of a sort of a social compact around safe and responsible AI. How should people should feel good about all of that, but what should they do starting this afternoon?
Well, I think there's a couple things. The first is, I think, as you build AI, really figure out how to center the communities that you're building for and think about the impacts. And knowing that no single piece of software is perfect, we know that there are bugs. So how do you manage those bugs and enable communities to report that to you? What is the system that you're going to build so that there is a way to get redress? I think that's incredibly important. And get feedback. So red teaming those types of practices in testing before deploying is incredibly important. The second piece is actually around data preparedness. A lot of the instances of AI that we find that are either incomplete or not working is because the data isn't ready to be taken into or formatted in a way that can be used with AI. And so those are the two, and I actually think we can partner with government on that as well. A lot of the public sector data that can be hugely helpful for things around climate, around health. If we can format that in ways that enable AI uptake more quickly, those things, things combined, I think can be hugely transformative.
Brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much. As I said at the beginning, I think we're very lucky to have the world's best AI company in our neighborhood, and I think the fact that you guys are very focused on the equitable application of AI in a neighborhood where equality is not. There is stark inequality still in this neighborhood. Means that there's a lot of opportunity but a lot of work to do. So thanks very much, and hopefully people have in this short segment got a few takeaways and have a sense of what's going on in the UK and with DeepMind. So thanks, Dorothy.
Thanks, Bob.